The dietary recommendations you can see here. The access code to the program has essential fatty acids. You don't need to know them for the diet project. Linoleic acid is an omega-6 fatty acid. Alpha-linolenic is an omega-3 fatty acid. And I'd like you to remember those. Linoleic, omega-6 means that that first double bond is found at the number 6 carbon from the omega end on the left. And omega-3 fatty acids, the first double bond is found at the number 3 carbon from the omega end. You just need to know omega-6 and omega-3, but that difference in those 3 carbons totally changes the functions of the fats. Another picture. So we have the omega end on the left and the acid end on the right for the chemistry geek amongst you. We also have trans fatty acids that are created during the hydrogenation process. If an unsaturated fatty acid is totally hydrogenated, it becomes a saturated fat because all of the double bonds are removed. But if only a few are removed and there are still some remaining, it changes the chemical structure of that fatty acid to what's called a trans fatty acid. And trans fatty acids can affect your health as much as saturated fatty acids, meaning that they can raise blood cholesterol levels. And we'll talk more about trans fatty acids in Module 3. These are some different functions of fat. They make you feel fuller longer. They provide texture, flavor. They're involved in fat-soluble vitamin absorption. For those of you that ride motorcycles or horses, it's those fat pads around your kidneys that protect them because fat cushions vital organs. It's essential for cell membrane structure. It provides insulation. So there are a lot of important functions for fat. The recommendations, we currently have no upper limit for unsaturated fats, but it's recommended to limit your saturated fat intake to 10% of your total calories. And this is over time. Don't think about it on your treat days. Limit your trans fatty acids from processed foods because those trans fatty acids can affect your cholesterol levels like saturated fat. And if you're so genetically disposed, it can raise your blood cholesterol level. Also, any excess calories from proteins, carbohydrates, or fat, if the body is not using them, will be converted to triglyceride and stored in your adipose or fat cells. We have a limited capacity to store carbohydrate as glycogen in our muscle and our liver, but we have an unlimited capacity to store fat. Phospholipids, the second member of our fat family, do not provide any calories. Lecithin is the most commonly known phospholipid. It's found in egg yolks and soy products. Phospholipids function as emulsifiers. They help combine water-soluble and fat-soluble substances. When we get together, I'll talk about how emulsifiers are like detergents, allowing those water-soluble and fat-soluble substances to mix. They're also part of our cell membrane. Again, you don't have to know structures, but here's our 3-carbon backbone. We actually have a diglyceride here, meaning that we have that 3-carbon backbone with 2 fatty acids, and that makes it fat-soluble or hydrophobic, water-fearing. And on the left, that 3rd carbon does not contain a fatty acid, but it contains, a choline molecule. You don't need to know that. I'm just bragging. But that's what makes it water-soluble or hydrophilic, water-friendly. So we have a water-friendly portion of the molecule, the water-soluble, and a water-fearing, the fat-soluble. And we'll talk about the importance of that online. Sterols are the 3rd member of the fat family, with cholesterol being the most well-known. Also do not provide calories. We get cholesterol from exogenous and endogenous sources. Exogenous means outside the body. So we get it from animal products. Cholesterol only comes from animal sources. True or false? Cholesterol only comes from animal sources. That's true. Most of the time, if you see a true-false question, that should be a red flag. And always never is usually false. But here, true. which is why when I see advertisements for French fries, these French fries are made with cholesterol-free vegetable oil. Vegetable oil never had cholesterol. Endogenous means it's made inside the body. Exogenous sources, animal foods. Endogenous, we get it from the liver, makes it from primarily saturated fatty acids found in food. Usually about a gram of cholesterol is made per day in the liver. There's this feedback mechanism whereby if you consume more dietary cholesterol than your body, than this, say 1,000 milligrams, that feedback mechanism tells the liver to make less cholesterol. All right, so cholesterol in food does not affect cholesterol in the blood because of that feedback mechanism, if your genetics are working in your favor. But it's the saturated fat in food that can affect cholesterol in the blood, which is why we recommend that people who have a history of heart disease, or because it may affect their blood cholesterol levels, to limit saturated fat intake. Cholesterol is used to make sex hormones, stress hormones, bile, which we'll talk about when we talk about digestion, and vitamin D. The recommendations for cholesterol: because we know that cholesterol can be deposited in the blood vessel walls that can then lead to plaque buildup and heart disease, the dietary recommendations used to say limit dietary cholesterol intake to less than 300 milligrams per day. And if you have had a heart event, to limit it to less than 200 milligrams a day. But now we know that cholesterol in food does not affect cholesterol in the blood as much as saturated fat. So the current dietary guidelines do not have a limit for dietary cholesterol or dietary unsaturated fat. It is recommended to limit your saturated fat to 10% of your calorie intake, because the saturated fat in food can affect the cholesterol in your blood. To summarize, lipids are organic compounds that include triglycerides, phospholipids, and sterols. They're the most calorie-dense macronutrient with 9 calories per gram. They contain saturated, monounsaturated, and polyunsaturated fatty acids that are in different proportions that then dictate their physical and physiological characteristics. Triglycerides have many important functions. Limit your saturated fat intake to 10% of your total calories. Limit your trans fats. Phospholipids help make up cell membranes. They act as emulsifiers. We'll talk about that. And cholesterol is only found in animal products. We make it in our liver, and it is therefore non-essential. See you later.